And today for our Voyagers, we're going to review Trapped by the Ice, but we're going to do it in a little bit of a different way. Today we're going to make a timeline of Shackleton's voyage, and we will submit our timeline onto Schoology. So our learning target is I can make a timeline, and we will need to reference our reading anthologies, so please take yours out. I've got mine right here, nice and handy. And I believe we're going to turn to page 218 is our first page. 218. You can make this timeline either in a notebook or on pieces of paper, or you may use your iPad. It is completely up to you. You can do whichever you find more that is more comfortable and more your style. So what I'm going to do next is move on and list the requirements we need. So I'm just going to move my face over a little bit. Ooh, here we go. And our timeline project. Today we will make a timeline to briefly summarize each recorded date from the story Trapped by the Ice. Now each recorded date, there's quite a few, so you're going to have a lot of spots on your timeline. You will need to reread sections in order to refresh our memories. So we will not be rereading the whole story. We'll just go to each of the sections and then pick the bits that are most important to us, and then we'll plug that into our timeline. Okay, so we're going to read the sections, put it in our timeline, read more sections, put it in our timeline. I will model reading the first sections and then recording the first date on our timeline, and then you can copy that onto your own timeline. And for completing the rest of the timeline, you'll need to work independently on this. So this is our only activity for today because it should take you kind of a while to be able to review the whole story because, let's be honest here, a lot of things, tragic things, right, happened to Shackleton and his crew on the journey. So you're going to have a lot of spots on your timeline. This is an example of a timeline that I set up just for starting off. I know if I would continue this, I would have lots and lots of spots on my timeline, one spot for each date. So I would have to make a lot more areas here. But what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm going to go to page 218, because that's where our story starts, and it says October 27th, 1915. So I am going to write October 27th, 1915, because that is the first date. And what is happening is it says the Endurance was trapped. Giant blocks of ice were slowly crushing her sides. So what we had to do was the Endurance is the name of their ship. So I'm going to use an italic, which makes it look slant like that, to show us that is the name of the ship. That means there's something a little different about that. So Endurance was trapped in the ice. Okay, and let me just check what else. I'm just kind of skimming over. It said Shack ordered his crew off the Endurance and had to camp on the frozen sea. So the crew now began camping on the ice because before they could actually stay in their ship, but since it was trapped and it was getting really dangerous for the crew because they didn't want to go down with their ship, right? So then they had to start camping then on the ice. Okay, now if you'll notice here, I might want to actually start bringing them a little closer together so I could have more room. And then you can do things like this, like, oh, we're going to move that up, or we might move things closer. We can have arrow, other ways to show. But I'm thinking your timeline is going to be rather long. So now I need to go to the next date, and I'll just show you with these two entries here. And that's on page 220, and it says November 21st. November 21st, 1915. So let's see. It says, almost 1 month later, the sound of crushing wood startled the men. It was what they had feared. Turning towards the ship's wreckage, they saw her stern rise slowly in the air, tremble, and slip quickly beneath the ice. So on the 21st, we're going to say the Endurance sunk, right? The Endurance sunk, which must have been very devastating for the crew. And then I'm just going to italicize that to again show that that's the name of the ship. The Endurance sunk. Okay, so then now on your own, what you're going to do is you are going to continue to fill in your information on the timeline. Make sure you add the date. Make sure you also add the most important things that have happened during that time. If you notice, I'm just kind of getting to the point. I'm not writing paragraphs and paragraphs in here. I'm just adding, like for instance, the first one, October 27th, 1915, Endurance was trapped in the ice. The crew now began camping on the ice, because those are two big important things that happened at that time. The 21st, the Endurance sunk. Now I'm not going to add all the other little pieces to that. That was the main point. It's like we're finding the main idea and we're just plugging that in. This one kind of had two main points. This date had one point, main point that I wanted to mention. So that's what you're going to do. Again, you're going to use a piece of paper or you're going to use your iPad. If you use the paper, you might have to use one side and the other side. If you use the iPad, you might need to use multiple screens to get your timeline. But the most important thing is having it go from the earliest date to the latest date. Okay, thank you. Bye.